I'm now going to go through the cut chart for this pattern. First, you'll start off with your webbing. The cut chart in the pattern gives the exact lengths that you'll need to cut, but you will need 3 smaller lengths to connect your rectangle rings here, here, and here, and then a longer length that you'll be using to adjust right here. And I recommend not cutting this longer length quite yet. I give some recommended lengths in the pattern, but a lot depends on how tall, how your stature. I am a short person, but a little bit of a more round person, and so I prefer a certain length, but you might want to try at the end of the pattern with a measuring tape to see exactly how much you want it. So I recommend you don't cut your longer length yet. You'll start with your piece A phone pocket flap. I like to cut out 2. Here, I'll keep my pattern here so I can show where these go on the pattern. Your pocket flap, and I generally make this both from the exterior fabric, but you could certainly do one exterior and one lining. And then I cut out some Decoville of the same size, and this will be cut shorter, or you'll cut off about 1/2 inch around the outside to make it fit better into the flap. If you don't have Decoville, you can use Peltex, or Pellon 926 is a favorite of mine for flaps. It's about twice the thickness of this, and it's not fusible, but it works well for flaps. All right, your top left corner, that's this piece up here, that is piece B. You'll notice on these pattern pieces that I have shapes on some of them. That's because there's so many strangely shaped pieces here that I found it easier when giving you instructions to point to the seams that have a certain, I put a certain shape on the different seams that will be going together. So later on, this will be sandwiched between piece B and our next piece, piece C, that also has a star. So it just helps identify which pieces go where, since there's so many different strangely shaped pieces. So we've got piece A, the flap, piece B, the top left corner. There are markings on some of these pieces, such as this one, mark end of zipper for non-binding version. So this is a good chance for me to show you the difference. This is the non-bound version, so it's birthed through this back pocket. I find it pretty easy with most versions that I've made to turn it through the pocket. There's not a lot of interfacing on the inside of these, so they turn through pretty well. So that's what that version looks like. But if you want to do the bound version, the zipper kind of is on the back of the bag instead of the top. This is the one that I'm currently carrying, so it has my stuff inside of it. And then it has the seam that's bound. So if you are doing the birthed version, you will want to make sure that you mark on the pattern piece where these arrows point to, so you know that's where the end of the zipper will go. Okay, on to piece C and piece D. These look very similar, but they are different. When you're cutting, make sure that you have the fabric right side up and the pattern piece right side up. The exception is if you want to have this be a left-handed sling, and I did make one version of that left-handed, but of course I don't have it within my arm's reach. You will want to either cut out your fabric with it wrong side up, but the piece is right side up, or fabric right side up, pieces wrong side up. So sorry, I hope I didn't confuse you with that. but just make sure that you, however you cut, that you keep it consistent. So this is piece C. It's going to be the back of the phone lining. So this piece right here. And then piece D is going to be the front of the phone pocket lining. So this piece right here. And it is a little wider at the top so that they can form that little phone pocket. Piece E is this piece right here. You'll want to mark the location of the magnetic snap. Typically what I do when marking that is I poke a hole through my pattern piece right in the middle where the pen is, mark it there, then I put my washer where that mark is and make 2 more marks where the slots will go right here, and then I use my seam ripper to cut those. Now in the pattern there's also an optional, if you have thinner fabric, so let's see, this canvas fabric, I found that just canvas wasn't strong enough even with the interfacing to keep this pocket open, so it would just collapse whenever I tried to put a phone in. So here I have a strip 1.5 inches wide of Decaville that's just right here. So if you have a thicker fabric like this vinyl or this upholstery fabric, I just used a square of Decaville behind the snap. And for this one I used a strip. So that works very well to help that opening stay open, and it ends up being right here, fused right here. Okay, so that's piece E. Piece F. This one can be just a little confusing in how you cut it out. In fact, I cut it out wrong the first time on accident with this pattern. So you have this first piece. These are the pocket linings for your front zipper pocket. So both of these pieces. One of them you want a little bit longer. That one you cut like this. And then the other one, turn my pattern piece over, folded it along this line, and cut it that way. If that's confusing to you, you can have your fabric together, cut both pieces together, and then this correct piece, you would cut the, it's about 1/2 inch off of right here. So these are your 2 F pieces. I also wrote on the pattern piece top and bottom. If you need to make a note on here like T or B for top and bottom, that might help you later on, because when you're putting all the different pieces together this way and that way, if you've never made it before, that part might be confusing to you. Here I have a triangle and a circle. If it helps, you can actually draw these shapes in the seam allowance to help you later on in the pattern when I say put the 2 seams together from these pieces that have a triangle. Then you can look at your pattern piece and say, oh, a triangle. Okay, piece G. This is this piece right here, and it has the darts written right here, but I find it helpful to draw the dart on the back. So I just put my pattern piece like this, lifted it up, and used that as a guideline of where to draw the darts in. This also has a mark for marking the end of the zipper for the non-binding version. Let's see, H. This is the back piece. And for this one, this is also can be a little confusing. I cut out the exterior with the pattern piece this way and the lining with the pattern piece this way. Also, I'm doing the binding version, so I folded but did not cut my pattern piece down. Later on, you're going to need to have it unfolded in the pattern, so don't cut this part off, just fold it. If you are doing the non-binding version, cut the whole piece and make sure you mark your ends on both your exterior and your lining. I are the square pocket in the back. J is the pleated lining piece, just like the exterior is pleated. The lining on that side of the purse will be pleated. So this is the front line, the pleated lining goes on the front. And the last piece I showed you also was the back lining. And I've already marked where my darts are, and I'm not doing I'm doing the binding version, so I did not mark where the arrows point. But if you are doing the birthed version, make sure to mark those. Okay, piece K, strap. You'll cut 2 of these, and they're the same this way or that. So since mine is a thicker fabric, I cut these one at a time. But when I was cutting out the canvas for a different version, I'm sure I just put my fabrics together and cut them out this way. And it works just as well because this piece is the same this way or that way. Now you'll notice that there is a gray part. Mine's not very gray because I'm running out of that color. But for the kids version, I make it shorter. For an adult version, I make it longer. My daughter's a teenager. She could probably just do the shorter version. But I prefer the longer version for myself, even though I'm short. So I cut out these 2 pieces. And then for piece L, you're either cutting 2 pieces of fusible fleece or 1 piece of foam. I do have one version that I did not, it's underneath all my pieces, that I did not interface at all. I didn't put foam or fleece, and that's because this was kind of a thicker quilted vinyl, and it works just fine. But when I have a lot of things in here, it does feel, I do sometimes wish I had a little padding. So most of the time I do, I use foam if I have a fabric that can't be fused, and if I do have a fabric that can be fused, I use fleece. Oh, and for this one, it's the same as the strap with the part in the center, that you make it smaller for kids or smaller adult, longer for an adult. And then pieces M and N are different zipper ends. You'll cut these slightly differently depending on whether you're doing the binding or the birthed version. Piece M, you'll need 4 of these. This is the ends that you'll see right here. So because I was doing this one as a bound version and I was nervous of thickness, I used just cotton for the exterior of this. This one I wasn't as worried. I did use the exterior on the outside. So I cut out 2 exteriors and 2 linings. But it can be kind of thick at those edges for a domestic machine. So you might just want to stick to something like this. For this version, I'm cutting all 4 of them from the lining. So either cut 4 from the lining or 2 from the lining, 2 from the exterior, depending on how thick how thick you want it right here on the edge. And piece N, if you were doing the bound version, you will need 2 exterior and 2 lining. And if you were doing the birthed version, you will just need 2 of these. And I recommend you do a thinner fabric like the lining because it ends up being quite thick here at the ends, because you fold it in on itself and then in again and put it over the end of the zipper. So I like to stick with thinner fabrics here. And that is everything that you need to make this pattern. So let's get to sewing.